finish for Thomas Hammock in Northern Illinois. You know, I wasn't watching it because I was watching some of the Monday Night Football. That game was ugly. I didn't have to watch much of that one. But there was some interesting commentary as it pertains to college football. And I thought it was some of the best commentary we have heard from one Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. In case you missed it, have a listen to the broadcast crew on Monday Night Football.
And Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. You and I have been talking about Indiana all year long with the job that Coach Cignetti did in just turning that program around. It didn't go the way he or they hoped with that first playoff game at Notre Dame, but man, my hat is off to a man and a program that got everybody that went there excited again.
Yeah, and I would put SMU in that category as well. And I think the disappointment is for those that want to question whether those teams belong in the playoff. I think to make those comments after the fact and after they had devastating losses by the amounts that they did, I don't know that that's fair to anybody. We see teams in the Super Bowl that lose by large margins, and they were worthy. So hats off to those winners and really all those teams, whether they lost last week or not.
Yeah, and I think what it does is it diminishes the job that the teams that won did. Like in the case of Notre Dame or Penn State and the job that they did in winning those games. I mean, it's sports, and not everybody shows up with their A game every night, but it's been a fun collegiate.
Hey, man.
They nailed it.
You know, that's what
we talked about this
I wish
yesterday.
we had heard more of that. Yeah, exactly.
Well,
Maybe they were listening to our show yesterday because I think that they shared our feelings. I could hear some very cynical person saying, well, Joe Buck is an Indiana guy and Troy Aikman lives in Dallas, but even still,
That's
can't you
fine.
just separate it for a minute and just look at it and say,
But
like celebrate the teams, the regular season they had. I mean, they just summarized it in a minute and 12 seconds. It was perfect.
those teams earn the right to be in the playoff. In great years, they earn the right to be in the playoff, and just like they said, the games didn't go well. They didn't have their A game. They got beat by better teams that were at home, had a massive home advantage, and we're better teams going in. I mean, those teams were favorites for a reason. And the thing is, you can never guarantee competitive games. And I'm glad that they brought up. So I know most people have seen this. I think the average margin of victory in this first round of the CFP was like 19 points. And that's a lot. Last year in the NFL playoffs, the first round games, the average margin of victory is like 17.3. And it's just a good reminder that even in the NFL, I don't think anybody's going to rewriting how the NFL does their playoff. And again, I know there's a lot of college football fans saying, well, I don't want the NFL. Okay, I understand. That you're missing the point if that's your takeaway of that. The point is that there's going to be games that get sideways. We see that every year in the regular season. Every single year. I talked to you yesterday about we had South Carolina Ole Miss. On paper, it looked like one of the best games we'd have all year. Looked like it'd be a game that'd come down to the final possession, maybe 27-3. 27-3. I mean, it wasn't even close, and we just don't know. These things aren't scripted. It's live sports entertainment, but even aside from that, like the thing that's just like this should be the opening weekend should have been a celebration. And that was my takeaway on Saturday when Pash and I talked about it briefly. I was just tired of hearing about who teams that if you thought they didn't. Everyone has a right to their opinion, but like to me, that opening weekend it should have been about this is great. Let's embrace this. Let's enjoy this. Let's celebrate this for college football. These home venues, these great crowds, and where the game's not as competitive as we thought. Sure, but. I think everybody got that off their chest yesterday. It was Festivus. And so there was a lot of airing of grievances yesterday, DK. And I think that we can I think we can move forward now, right? Like, I don't know. I mean, what I don't want to do is at some point we gotta move forward. Like, I think that a lot and we'll talk with the SEC crossover. I think our man Peter Burns, wasn't leading the charge, but he was right there in the thick of it. We can have that conversation, but at some point, like,
Oh, I forgot.
To me, this
I didn't.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're gonna have some
yeah.
fun that final hour.
I just think at some point, like, let's focus on these games, and with Boise in them, and Arizona State, and we'll see. There's both those point spreads are pretty big, right? And we'll see what happens in these games. But I just like to try to enjoy and appreciate this expanded playoff that we have for the first year, and then we'll get to a place where we can have a conversation about how we can make it better. But